Hello, y'all. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. We have another special guest with us today, Miss Elky. Hold on, let me get my clapping hands. Y'all know I don't play by.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, round of applause to you, girl. Tuning in live from Medellin, Colombia. Are you excited to be here today?
I am very excited.
I'm sure they're excited to see you too, girl. I told everybody a little bit about your story in the description of the live video, but we're gonna have you come in and talk to us today and literally let them know from your point of view. So you want to introduce yourself, Miss Elky?
Yes. Hi everyone, I'm Elky, and no, it is not short for anything. I only got 4 letters. That's all my parents gave me. But hey, it works for like Instagram usernames because ain't nobody else taking it. So I can't be too mad. I'm like, as long as you search my name, I'm gonna pop up somewhere. So I ain't mad at it.
Okay, so title is I left Costa Rica, moved to Medellin. So to start this thing off, I definitely want to talk a little bit about Costa Rica because you are literally like the first person I've talked to that's like Costa Rican. Is that what the people?
Yeah.
Costa Rican.
We use like, you know how like in Colombia for Medellin they say paisas. So for Costa Rica it would be ticos.
Ticos.
So it's Tico, and if you're a girl it's a tica. So basically, the reason they said that they named us that way is because in Costa Rica, we add a diminutive to every word at the end. So instead of like little, we say like, it's like a way of saying like extra little. So instead of like chiquito, we'll be like chiquitico. And then that's where we got the tico from.
It's a different Spanish? Is it slang?
It's just like a little, how to explain it? Like a little something we add to the end of a word to make it more exaggerated. So like, you know, like little and then like littler or something like that, right? But we do it a lot with a lot of words. So we'll be like chiquitico, rapidito. Like we add a lot of the little itos to it. So then we got like the tico from that.
See, and you lucky because you already was fluent in Spanish. Because I was out in Medellin struggling. I was in Mexico before I got to Medellin and I was already struggling. But Medellin Spanish is a little different, I think.
Yeah.
Spanish, period. So, okay, we're not here to talk about me though. So, Costa Rica. So, can you talk to us a little bit about your experience and your life in Costa Rica before we get all into Colombia?
Yeah.
Costa Rica life.
So, for me personally, it was a little bit difficult just because I left for the US when I was like 3 years old. So I didn't know Costa Rica until I was like 12 years old, basically. So I had no concept, no idea, no nothing. Versus like my brothers, they left when they were like 7 years old. So it was a little bit different. But 7 or 12, something like that. But when I went back, I will say infrastructure wise, Colombia has some beat. Absolutely.
Really?
But we don't have these tall, nice little buildings you see behind. Mm-hmm. We don't got none of that. But Costa Rica's it's a small little country. You can literally go from one side to the other in like 4 hours, and then like up and down in like 8 hours. Like you can go the whole country in like 8 hours basically. And so it's a small little space. There's only 5 million of us, if I'm not mistaken. And then, for example, like Colombia, Antioquia, which is the area where like Medellin is located, that's just an area inside of Colombia. They have 5 million people. So this area is like the size of my whole country, basically, which is like crazy to me, right?
When I think of Costa Rica, I do just think of the jungle.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, the jungle and surfing and that's it.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're known for. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. You know, you have cities, you have jungle, you have the beach, you have a little bit of everything. It's very diverse, and not just like in the amount of things that you see, but also it has. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm wrong, you didn't hear from me, but we have 6% of the world's biodiversity. So basically, we're a tiny little country, but we have 6% of like biodiversity means like plants, animals, like everything, living organisms, right?
Wow.
So even though we're like tiny, we have 6% of the whole world's so you can find all the critters out there.
In Costa Rica, see, that scares me. That doesn't turn me on. That actually freaks me out.
I mean,
y'all got bugs I haven't seen before. I mean, bugs I haven't met yet. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. Yeah, you might run into some little bugs you might not like, but you also get to see a lot of monkeys you've never seen before. So, I mean, it balances out, you know?
Yeah. So you feel it's more, I guess you could say, more to see in terms of just like nature and animals and wildlife and things like that. Whereas Medellin is, what would you consider Medellin is compared to Costa Rica?
So for me, I feel like Costa Rica is beautiful for tourism. Like I always recommend everyone, like if you can go vacation there, absolutely do it, because you're going to see a lot of things that you've never seen anywhere else. But for me personally, living there always felt a little bit difficult. It felt like you have to, you know, work a little extra hard to do or accomplish anything. Versus Medellin, it's like, you still have like a lot of greenery, but it's a good city. It's very diverse in a lot of senses, but it's just very accessible. Like it's pretty, they call it like the New York of Latin America.
Do they call it that? I can see it though, because I came to Medellin straight from Mexico City. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really, no shade to anybody who lives in Mexico City, but I just really didn't vibe with Mexico City as much as I thought I was going to, because it's so big, and you know, it reminded me of New York. So when I came to Medellin and I was like, oh, this is like city, but not too overwhelming. It was just the perfect balance, like the perfect mix for me. So I could,
I agree.
I could see that. So, all right. So obviously you landed in Medellin. So you voted Medellin. They got your vote. Did you travel? And I want to talk more about your story, because I know you had some struggles with like immigration, and you know, we talked a little bit about trying to get back to the States, and it didn't really, you know, work out how you thought. But did you travel through like Colombia before settling into Medellin, or you just went to Medellin and was like, this is it?
So I haven't really explored that much of Colombia. Like I've explored other parts. Mm-hmm. I've only been to San Andres for like a week, and I was in Cartagena for like 3 days. But those areas are, even though Medellin is touristy, it's not designed for tourism like beach areas are, right? So it's a little bit different. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been meaning to explore other parts of Colombia, but to be frank with you, I just can't leave Medellin. Like I'm like, I mean, I could, but why would I, you know?
Yeah.
And like Colombia is beautiful. Like Medellin is just like one of the amazing cities you have. Like they have so many areas to go see and explore. But I'm just living it up here, that I'm like, I'll do it later. You know, like I just keep pushing it for later. Yeah, I'm like, I'll explore another time. But I'm like, I'm just trying to enjoy Medellin right now.
No, I went and I fell in love. Like Medellin, the energy there is so different. Like it's just, Medellin has my heart, for real. I'm trying to get back, because I'm so sad we didn't get to meet, you know, in person when I was out there. But I definitely feel you. I went first day. I was like, oh yeah, I know this place already.
Well, I'm gonna be here hopefully, unless they kick me out. I'm gonna be here.
No, girl, you there to stay. We there to stay. You just got an apartment. We ain't going nowhere. So
they don't have to drag me out. Listen,
yeah. I wanna touch on your struggles of just like, you know, the immigration and kind of like the process of getting residency in Medellin. Mm-hmm. So can you share a little bit about that? Like I know you spent some time in Europe and trying to get back to the States. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And then what was your process of actually, you know, settling down in Medellin?
So I grew up in the US, like I told you, right? Mm-hmm. And because I didn't know anything else and I got to Costa Rica, I just didn't really feel at home. It's not that there's anything wrong with the country per se, but you know how sometimes some spaces just don't feel right? They don't feel like home. So Costa Rica never really felt like home. And the whole time I grew up there, my mindset was like, oh, this is just temporary. I'm going to move back. So I never even allowed myself the opportunity to really settle down in Costa Rica. So I think maybe if I would have gone into it with a different mindset, maybe the outcome would have been a little bit different.
Yeah.
But so far, I was like, no, I'm not messing with Costa Rica. So my whole plan was to go back to the States. So I tried different things. I had applied for like a scholarship. I had gotten like far, but then they didn't end up picking me. And then I was thinking about trying to do like a school thing, but it's just really expensive, right? So no school, like a student visa is too expensive. I got a tourist visa, but they only gave it to me for 2 years. Usually they do 10 years. And then when I tried to renew it, they denied it, and they were like, you were out of your country for too long, basically. So it wasn't even like you were in the US for too long, it's you were out of your country for too long. And I'm like, what?
Your business like that?
I'm like, what do you care? I didn't do that illegal. Like, come on. But US does whatever it wants to do when it comes to visas. And so, I mean, I kind of get it because I was in the States for like 4 months. Then I went to Europe for a little bit, for like a month or so. And then I came back and was there for 5 months. But technically, I'm legally allowed to be there 6 months. And I wasn't working. I was living off of my savings. So I really did nothing wrong. There was no reason for them to take my visa, but whatever. So then after that, I tried to go as a nanny, like an au pair. So I paid the program, which I think was like $4,000. I interviewed. I got a family. I got everything set up. During this moment, it was like COVID, so the U.S. Embassy in Costa Rica was not open. So I had to travel to Nicaragua, which is the country that's next to us, because the U.S. Embassy was open there and they had appointments. Otherwise, I had to wait like another year. And the nanny program, it closes when you turn 26, and I was already like 25. So I was like, I need to do this now. So I went all the way to Nicaragua. I went with 3 or 4 other girls. They all got their visas. And I was denied. So the U.S. just don't mess with me.
What
they don't like me. They don't want me to be great, So after that, I tried joining the military. Like, that's how bad it got. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just join the military. And then I was like, I'm willing to do anything to go over there, right? Which is crazy. And then I researched, and then turns out that because I'm not a resident of the U.S., I can't even apply to join the military. So I'm like, damn. So it really hit me that I was like, you're not going back to the U.S. Like,
or
no.
you could marry somebody. You could have found somebody.
I thought about it, but that requires money. Money I did not have. So I was like,
get married.
If you pay someone to marry you, it's like at least $20,000. Something like that.
I need to work. Girl, hold on, because you could have married me. We could have.
Sorry, I'm stuck in Colombia.
Wait a second. You brought her getting paid 20 bands to just say I
know. And 20 bands is like the lower spectrum, yeah. But the thing is, you have to consider this. I mean, it sounds nice, right? But you have to stay married for a minimum of 3 years. You risk being incarcerated if they find out that it's not a real marriage. And it's like you got to do like an interview, do lawyers. It's a long process. So if you decide like you're single now, but like during those 3-5 years, you end up meeting someone you actually want to marry, you're screwed, So it's not the easiest to process, and then you have to like live with the person and prove that you live. So I personally don't recommend it. I'm like, unless like it's someone that's really, really close to you and you really like want to do it. But like marrying someone for money or like getting paid to marry someone, it can be tricky because people are also like irresponsible.
But
right?
Isn't that what that one show about?
The 90 Day Fiance?
Yes, that's the show.
Yes and no. They get married for love,
Mm-hmm.
But they do the fiance visa. So the fiance visa allows you to go to the States for 90 days. And then if you're not married by the end of those 90 days, you got to get out. But it's basically 90 days for you to like organize your marriage or whatever the hell. Do
y'all be watching that in the chat? Y'all be watching 90 Day Fiance? I'm a really big reality TV person. But it's interesting. Have you had anybody reach out to you about a reality TV show? Doing one?
I don't think so, but I actually wanted to participate in 90 Day Fiance. I was like, listen, I'll find me someone. I'm like, I can get paid from the show, and then I can use that money to pay. Like, I thought about everything, right? And then I found out, I'm sure things have changed now, but back then when I was looking into it, they would only pay you $1,000 per episode, and only the American would get it. Like the foreigner would not get paid because it's an American company.
Oh, they're getting over because I know they're making a bag. I know they're making a bag. But it's interesting because I can see like a trend. A reality TV show producer reached out to me about, I mean, I'm telling you all the beans because I'm not doing it, but I can see a trend of what's happening is a lot of people, you know, moving to different countries and kind of talking more about it on social media. And I feel like we're about to see a lot of shows, you know, that reflects their stories and their journeys. And I don't know, girl, say put your email out there. You may just get hit up.
Yeah. Trying to get married. Come on, let's go.
Good. So
I'll bring all the drama. I ain't even pressed. I'll bring all the drama. It's cool.
I can already tell you trouble. I don't know. I can tell. I can see it in your eyes, girl. But okay, so the US was out. We couldn't get back.
Yes. So like once I found out, like it really like I fell into reality. Like, hey, you're not going to the US. I fell into like a deep depression, but I don't know how to explain it. It's not necessarily like depression, but rather, you know, as human beings, we're all like goal oriented, right? We have things like we want to do, and we have like a big goal, and then we have the smaller goals, right? But without the bigger goal, the smaller goals become a little bit insignificant because you don't have like a long-term trajectory. So my whole life, my long-term trajectory was going back to the States. So when I lost that, I lost my sense of direction in life. So I was like, what's the point? So I would like go to sleep. I didn't want to like, you know, stop living, but I just kind of didn't see the point of it anymore. Like work wasn't important to me. I don't know. I lost that sense of like
some spark.
Existential crisis, basically.
Yeah.
And in that moment, an opportunity had arose to get citizenship for Spain. And here's the craziest part. Like when I found out I could get citizenship for Spain, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, I could apply for a visa to the US as a Spaniard.
Girl, okay, hold on. We definitely gonna get into this Europe story. But why would you want to come to the US so bad? What was it?
So let me explain a little bit. So my thing was, I left when I was 12 years old, and I had a really nice childhood. Like I was always surrounded by my family. My school was great. I had a lot of friends. Like I really did not have like a negative experience yet because I was so young, right? I hadn't even gone to high school yet, so I didn't even deal with like heavy bullying or nothing. Like it was just all nice and fun. And so when I was living in Costa Rica, I kept like thinking of those times that I had. So that's all I was associating the US with. Like now as an adult, I have a different vision of the US now that I was able to go back versus before when I was like younger, I had like this positive vision, you know? So I was so like, I was just like, I need to go back. I need to go back to that life. And it's funny because, so I grew up in North Carolina, and when I did go back to North Carolina, I was like, damn, it's actually kind of boring out here because it's a great state if you're a kid or you're raising kids. But like as a young adult, there's not too much to do unless like you're living like in Raleigh or something, or like Charlotte. But I was like, damn, it's crazy because now that I'm back, I'm just like, I kind of want to go. I was still happy, you know, I still felt at home. And it just felt like I understood more. Like, I don't know, like going shopping, grocery shopping, I'm like, oh, this and that. And like, just reminded me of like my childhood. And so I felt like more like in my roots, I guess. But yeah, it definitely was kind of like a wake up call where I was like, oh, this is not what I kind of remember, you know? I was like, oh, damn. So that's why I was so like stuck on going back to the States.
And in North Carolina, of all places, girl, I'm thinking you're gonna say LA. You know, you was in the Big Apple, you was in Miami, you was in North Carolina.
Now,
no shade to anybody who's in North Carolina.
They know we know the truth. We don't lie to ourselves. But funny enough, right before I went to North Carolina, I was actually in New York for the first time because I used to work at Amazon and my coworkers were from Amazon. So when I quit my job, they were like, yo, come to New York, like we'll host you, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, like my whole life, everyone had always told me like New York is dirty, it's full of mean people, it's expensive, it's this and that. So I just had like a very negative image of New York. but one of my best friends, like, she loves New York. She's obsessed with it. And I felt bad because I'm like, damn, I have the opportunity to go when in reality she should be the one to go. But I was like, you know what? It's not every day you get an opportunity to go to New York for free. You know, free housing. I'm like, I'm there. So I ended up going. I fell in love with New York City. I'm obsessed.
It was summertime. Was it summertime?
No, I got there winter. I was there like February or something. It was cold.
Maybe
But
summertime New York hit different. There is no place in this country. I'm in Miami right now, y'all. There's no place like summertime New York. Summertime New York. I don't know what's in the air besides the rats, but
I mean, I was there in February when it was cold, and I was there in August. So I did both of them. But I mean, it has its challenges, I'm not gonna lie. But I think the biggest difference is I was there, but I wasn't working. I was just there having fun.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about the commute, the rain, the rats, the this or that, getting pushed, shoved, whatever. I was just out there getting lost and having a good time. I would just go on a train and be like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going somewhere. And I would just get out at any exit, be like, okay, where can I go eat something? That was what I would do every day. I would just go get lost and have a good time. So it was fun that way, but otherwise I know like people who live there, it's not exactly no kind of vacation. It's a lot of stress.
Okay, so fast forwarded, you got the opportunity to go to Spain.
Yeah.
Tell us where you were in Spain. Exactly where were you at?
So I went to Madrid specifically.
Okay. So we were in Madrid. I think you said you did 3 months?
I did 3 months in Europe, but I was only 1 month in Madrid.
Okay, and you decided this isn't my vibe. I'm gonna pass up on this citizenship opportunity. Like, what happened? Because that sounds like a dream to most people. Like, I would love to be a citizen of Spain. So what happened to where you was like, I'm out?
So when I got there, I did meet with the lawyer. I put in my paperwork and everything, but the process that I started, it takes a year. So it already took some time to like get all the documents, whatnot, and then I had to go personally to Spain to see a lawyer, give her the documents, have her sign everything, whatnot, and then I had to wait a year after that. So while I was waiting for that year, I was trying to stay in Europe, but I can only be there 3 months, right? And then you got to be out 3 months, in 3 months, and whatnot. So those 3 months, my oldest brother, he lives in Portugal, and I was traveling with my mom in that moment. So we went to see him, and then I had an opportunity to do some volunteering in Greece for a month with like cats. So me and my mom did that, and then the last stop was Spain, because I'm not gonna lie, I was a little tired of translating for my mom. I was like, listen, I'm gonna just take you to a Spanish-speaking country because my brain needs a recess.
Real quick, how did the citizenship opportunity? Let's get to some logistics.
Okay.
How did the citizenship opportunity come about for Spain? Was this through descendants? Are you like, okay, you got some family that's
Spanish? Sort of. So
how did that happen, girl? I need opportunities.
So both Spain and Portugal are offering the same opportunity. Basically, I think it's already closed, but they put out a list of last names, and if your last name was on the list, there was a probability that you were a descendant of a Spaniard. But this also really like it made me understand a lot of things, because, for example, if you look at Panama or you look at Nicaragua, they're a lot darker skinned than the people in Costa Rica. So I was like, why are people in Costa Rica like that much whiter than the rest of them? Because in Costa Rica, you'll see people like with blonde hair, blue eyes, everything, and you're like, huh? And so what happened was about like 500 years ago, Spain was like, if you don't accept to be Catholic, you got to get out of the country. So a lot of the Jewish people that were living in Spain, they migrated to Costa Rica. And because we're such a small country, they heavily mixed with us, right? So now Spain, in a way to make amends, they were like, if you are a descendant of one of those Jewish people, and you can prove it, we will give you citizenship. So they're like making it right, because like nowadays, like to kick someone out of a country because of their religion is like impossible, right? Like that's crazy. That could never happen. So this is like their way of making amends. Same thing with Portugal. So my brother was the one who initiated it. So he investigated our last name, which is Ramirez, and he paid to make like a family tree. And this goes back like 500 years ago. So it's not like my grandpa or my grandma. Like all of my close relatives, we're all Costa Rican. We've been Costa Rican. We don't know nothing about Europe, no nothing. but I guess my descendants like way back.
Wow. Did y'all do like a ancestry test?
So we had done an ancestry test before this. My brother had did it because he loves Europe and he's like, I'm European, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. And so he went and did it, and effectively, like, it came out like 50% Spain, and I was like, what? And then the other percentage were like Latin America. So we didn't get it based off of being. It wasn't based off our like DNA thing, but rather like we had to pay someone to make like a family tree and trace it back to them. So I have like all the documentations of like birth certificates and everything.
I need whoever you hired, because I may have a descendant somewhere and I can give me some citizenship. Girl, look, hold on, we're gonna have to talk about that after after this interview. But okay, so you did the family tree, found out you can get citizenship. Obviously, it took too long for your liking. Is that
I mean, here's the funny thing. So I wasn't unhappy in Spain. I was happy. I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm living up in Europe. But the thing is, like I said, I could only be there 3 months at a time, right? So then I had to be outside the EU. But in that moment, I don't think I even had a job. I was just like living off of my savings again. And so I'm trying to find a country outside the EU that is like inexpensive. So I landed on Turkey. And I joined some Facebook groups and I started looking for like accommodation, and I was just gonna rent a room. But girl, I got harassed so bad. Like the men, crazy. Like,
wait, what part of Turkey?
Istanbul.
What do you mean harassed? Like by the landlords?
No, just like I posted like in the groups like, hey, I'm looking for a room, this is my budget, blah blah blah, and they would just start DMing me like, hey, and just like talking to me. Till this day, I still have people in my DMs from fucking Istanbul messaging me.
That's
like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I got scared because I was going to travel by myself. And like as a woman on her own traveling, I was like, this might not be the move for me. So I'm like, if this is the level of harassment I'm getting just looking for a room, I don't want to see what it's like in person. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not about to do this. So then I'm freaking out because I'm like, okay, where do I go now? Like, I don't have any money. Like, what do I do? And before I even went to Spain, like right before COVID, I had planned to come to Colombia. I had even rented an Airbnb and everything because I heard my family had been and I had heard great things. So I was like, you know what, I want to go check it out. So, but because of COVID, I had to cancel everything while I had out. So once I'm in Spain, I'm like, where do I go next? And I was like, you know what, should I just do Colombia? But like the reason I didn't want to go to Colombia is because eventually I wanted to come back to Spain. I was just trying to do 3 months. And I didn't want to have to pay such an expensive plane ticket, but I didn't really have a choice. So I ended up coming to Colombia, not because I was like trying to, it just happened. I didn't know where else to go in the world. And I ended up coming here, and look at me now. You cannot make me leave.
So all right, you go to Colombia. I'm guessing you flew into Medellin.
Yeah. Well, funny story. Okay, actually, nightmare story. So I literally waited until my like entry almost expired in Spain. Like I literally left the day that it expired, basically the day before, and I missed my flight. But because I had been traveling with my mom, I had been buying flights for both of us and like all the stuff, the trains went up. So when I bought my flight, I accidentally put her last names instead of my last name. It's just one last name that's different. But so, like, first of all, I was late, but I got there, like, right on time. I'm like, okay, I made it. I'm, like, huffing and puffing because I'm wearing the mask. I can't breathe. I'm like, oh, my God. And I'm like, okay, I made it. And it was supposed to be a direct flight from, I was in Barcelona in that moment. It was supposed to be a direct flight from Barcelona to Medellin. And I already had my Airbnb and everything here. And she's like, you can't board the plane. I'm like, why? And she's like, your name is wrong. And I'm like, what? I'm like, but you can see my last name. That it's just well. And she's like, no, you're not allowed to board. And they didn't let me board. So I'm like freaking out because I'm like, I have to leave Spain.
This is today. It's now or never.
I'm gonna be illegal. They're gonna deny my citizenship now. What? And so I'm freaking out. I'm like sobbing in the airport. I don't know what to do because I took the last train from where I was staying, which is at my cousin's house. I took the last train to get to the airport. So I got nowhere to go back unless I get like a really expensive Uber. And I'm just like freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So on the phone like with my family. My brother ended up getting me a hostel room, so they picked me up, and then like at the hostel, I just ended up having to buy another flight. So obviously, I had to buy for the next day, so it was mad expensive. And then I had to do Bogota to Madrid, Barcelona to Madrid, Madrid to Bogota, and Bogota to Medellin. So I was traveling for 2 days basically. It was insane. Like my eyes were and because I was crying so much and I had to buy like I did not sleep. I slept 2 hours that day, and then I didn't sleep for 2 days basically. So after that, I'm like, I'm not getting on a motherfucking plane and I don't know how long.
I ain't going nowhere.
I ain't going nowhere. I don't want to travel. Nothing, nowhere, nada. I'm like, I'm good. And because every time I would get on a different plane, I was like, yo, they're gonna stop me. They're gonna tell me something's wrong. They're gonna tell me I did something wrong. I literally got traumatized. I'm like, I don't
have PTSD.
Literally, I was like, bro, I hate planes. Until this day, I hate flying. I hate airports. I hate everything. I'm like, can I just like teleport to my destination? Because I can't do this.
Why is that technology not out? Yeah, I'm with you. I'm literally with you. So okay, so we finally make it to Medellin. And was it like an immediate no? Because I know you said that it was supposed to have been temporary, 3 months, just so I can get back to Spain. So what happened? What transpired from you changing your mind to being there in Medellin temporarily to, you know what, this is home?
So it's actually funny because it was a very slow process for me, because people speak very negatively about Medellin, like safety wise.
Yes.
So I had this concept that like Medellin was unsafe, right? And I remember the first day I got here, I had to walk to the mall to get something to eat and like buy groceries because there was nothing here. So I'm freaking out because I don't know how to get there. But then I'm told like I can't have my phone out. So I'm like, I pull up the map on my phone and I'm like, I have it in my pocket and like I look at it for like 5 seconds and I hide it. And I'm like hiding in the corners trying to look at my phone. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just like freaking out. And the path that I had to take to get to the mall wasn't like exactly the easiest path to take. So I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my, I think I even drew out the map and everything because I was just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
People I was so exaggerating because they told me the same thing. Don't have your phone out in Medellin.
And don't get me wrong, yes, don't have it out. But it's not like if someone peeps it, they gonna rob it. It's rather just like be smart with it, you know? But I was so stressed. By the time I got to the mall, one of my eyes went blurry. Like I couldn't see out of it. I was stressed. And then I get to the mall and then I'm like, wait, can I have my phone out inside the mall? Do I have to also hide it in the mall? I'm just like, I was
too much.
It was a lot. It was overwhelming. It's stupid because I just let people scare me. And then I remember I went and I found this like pasta spot inside the mall. I sat down, I ordered some spaghetti, some breadsticks, and a drink. I go to pay. I don't understand the damn currency. I just pay. I'm like, I'm out. I go back home and I'm trying to convert it. And I'm converting it and I keep getting $4 and I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. And I keep trying to convert it. And then it really hit me. I'm like, that cost me $4? I was like, I love Medellin. I love it here. I never want to leave. I was like, I don't care about nothing. Nobody's moving me from here. I love it. Because back home, that would have been like at least $10 at least. And I'm like, at the mall? It wasn't even like a mom and pop shop. I was at the mall. I was like, damn, I feel fancy. I'm about to eat out every day. Damn, okay. And that was like, that set it off for me. I'm like, I love it here. I don't even care about nothing. And then I moved in with a Colombian family because I didn't know anything about Colombia. So I'm like, they can teach me where to go, where not to go, what to do. And I remember it was around Halloween time, like October. And I wanted to get a Halloween costume. So they told me we were going to go to El Centro, right? I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like, it's not downtown, but it's just like a little central area. But everyone was like, oh, El Centro is the most dangerous part of Medellin, right?
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
So you got to be so careful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'm imagining some scary shit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just follow the Colombians. I'm gonna just do what they do. If they lift their arm, I'm gonna lift their arm. I'm not gonna stand out. I'm gonna do what they do. And we get there, and I'm expecting, some crazy stuff. It looks exactly like my country's capital downtown, but nicer. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wait. And then that's when it hit me. I was like, wait, I'm Latina. Like, what the hell am I scared of?
She's like, y'all are me. I am you, actually.
I was like, what am I scared of? Like, I'm like, I grew up in this. I know what this is. This is nothing. And I was like, y'all call this scary? Wow. Okay, whatever. And I did my little shopping. It was fine. And then I remember I made friends with this one girl. She was probably like 19. At that point, I was like 20 something. And she was like, oh, let's go out dancing. Let's go party. And I was like, you and me alone by ourselves? Us two? Are you crazy? I was like, what? No, we can't be out by ourselves. And she was just like, what are you talking about? And I was like, this girl is loca. I'm like, hell no. And then once I went to like Provenza for the first time and I saw it's just like a strip with no car, the safest fucking place ever. I'm just like, oh, okay. And now you
duped. They didn't know. So I flew into Medellin New Year's Day.
Okay.
Right? Fun story about Provenza. So obviously I went there for New Year's Eve. And I was supposed to went out with these girls, but they was like, it was some funny business going on.
Okay.
So I decided against it. You know, I followed my intuition, and my intuition told me you ain't going out with them. You're just not. Mm-hmm. So the New Year's Eve party I got tickets to was in Provenza. And I was like, people told me this place not safe. I'm by myself now. It's New Year's Eve. You know, so I'm just having all these things. You know, people was getting drugged and, you know, all the routine and stuff. Girl, I'm by myself. And one thing about me, I'm going to go out by myself.
Okay. I love that.
And it was crowded because it was New Year's Eve. I was like, oh, y'all was lying. Okay. They are.
Yeah, and people here are so freaking friendly. Like, I remember the first few days, I kept thinking people were trying to, like, take my money or something. They were trying to do something sketchy because I'm like, why are you being so nice? I was like, And then I remember when I went out dancing for the first time, like, I went out to party, the girls would come up to me, they would talk to me, they would dance with me, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, are they lesbians? What's going on? I was so confused because, like,
so
home,
are people not friendly? Okay, you know what? Let's go back to Spain real quick. Because I've heard some places in Europe, you know, like France, for example, they don't really care for Americans, and you know, so
no one. If you ain't French, they don't care about you.
Yeah, like how were the people in Spain? Were they friendly, or are Costa Ricans friendly, or you know?
So yeah, Costa Ricans are very friendly, but Colombians take the cake. Like, I have never met a group of, like, they are the friendliest people I have ever seen. Spaniards are also friendly. I think my biggest issue is that because I was traveling with my mom, I didn't have as many opportunities to, like, socialize and meet other people because it's, like, you know, my mom. And so we still did meet some people, but I didn't experience it as much, I guess. Versus, like, in Colombia, it was like I would go out and people would walk by and be like, good morning. And I'm just like, what you saying good morning for? What?
Trauma. See, that is trauma.
Especially the men, they'd be like, good morning. I'm like, are you trying to hit on me? Relax. I just left my house. Like, stop. But I remember that day, I was like, are they lesbians? What's going on? Because, like, back home, if you out to party and you don't know the girls, because it's girls I don't know, they, like, look you up and down and they give you, like, the stink eye, you know, because they see you as, like, competition. These girls are, like, giving you hugs. Oh, you're so pretty. You're so beautiful. Let's dance. And I'm just like, huh? But that's just how they are. Like, here, girls are girls. Like, I love it. They are so nice. You can just start chatting with anyone, and now your friends will invite you over to your, oh, let me cook for you. Let me do this for you. And I'm just like, okay, sure.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because I definitely want to touch on the community that you personally are building, have built, this beautiful community, bringing people together. So for those of you who don't know, which is all of you guys watching, Elky started this WhatsApp group for expats and people that you know have a similar background, I should say. I'm gonna let you describe it. But coming together, whether it's moving to Medellin or just visiting. So first question is, how did that come about? Like, how did the group start? You know, what made you want to start the group chat, the WhatsApp group, and what was your goal when you started? You know, I know now, I don't even know how many members is in it.
I think it's like 700. give or take.
700 people, and I'm one of them. So yeah, so how did you start? Like, why did you start it? What's the goal for it? And tell us a little bit about that.
So while I was traveling, I didn't really know about WhatsApp groups until I went to Mexico, which actually happened after Colombia. So I was here for like 9 months, and then I had to leave because of the visa thing. So I went to Mexico, and I was there for like 6 months. And while I was there, this one girl told me about a WhatsApp group. So it was Melanated Women of Medellin, and I was like, and she was inviting me to a PDC. Sorry, my bad. and she was like, "Oh, you should join." And I was like, "Are you sure I can join?" Like,
Melanated.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, yeah, it's fine, no problem. And I'm like, I mean, okay. If she tells, because she was a black woman, like, she tells me I can join, I believe her. I gotta say nothing against it. So I joined, and it was crazy because for the first time, I felt like understood, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like the conversations that were being having and stuff, I was like, okay, like, I like the perspectives. I like that they were like a lot of tough love. Like, if you did something, they would like call you out, but with like so much respect, and they just wanted to build you as a person. I'm like, yo, this is so beautiful. And I fell in love with that community. And then further on, I shared something about, I was doing my lashes or something, and I shared a picture of myself, and they were like, there's people in this group that shouldn't be here. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, oh no. So then we had like this big conversation, right? Because I was like, listen, I want to.
I'm sorry, they ignorant. Okay.
No, it was fine. I get where they were coming from, right? So it's like, based on the way I look, I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. But like, if this space ain't meant for me, I have no problem like leaving. But it makes me sad because I feel really like at home here. So, we started having like a whole conversation about what I meant. Like, I explained like my background, how I grew up and whatnot. And then at the end of the day, they ended up deciding like that it included Latinas, and it wasn't necessarily based on like your skin tone, rather like the experience, right? So I ended up staying in the group. I met so many like amazing people. It was just like it was the first time in a really long time that I felt like in place, or that I had a place for myself, if that makes sense. Because, like, for me growing up, I'm Latina, but I also grew up in the States. So there's a lot of parts or a lot of aspects of me that are very, like, Americanized. So some of the Latinos don't understand a lot of my things. And same thing with a lot of Americans. They don't understand a lot of my things being a Latina, right? For example, like, I would tell some of my friends, like, oh, yeah, I can't get a visa. And they'll be like, oh, let me just email Obama. I'm like, that's not how it works. What? Like, it was just a lot of ignorance about, you know, like immigration and stuff like that. So I was just like, it's very frustrating to have certain conversations with them.
So that's why the group was such a safe space for you. And exactly. I want to take the time out to highlight this group just for a second.
Go ahead, absolutely.
You know, we interviewed yesterday whose group it is.
Yes, I love her.
The group she's referring to, guys, is hosted by Miss Cece in Playa del Carmen, the mayor of Playa del Carmen is where everybody calls her, who we interviewed just yesterday. So if y'all haven't watched that interview, please go interview it. I said go interview it. Oh my goodness, please go watch it.
Go watch it.
But yeah, so, you know, and we talked about that because that was such a huge thing for Cece too, of just creating, like, and I'm not trying to, you know, talk for her, but having that safe space and bringing people together to like network and just kind of have a home away from home. So I'm just so happy to hear that mission was accomplished, because it was such a huge pivotal part of for my journey in Playa too.
Exactly. Like, I felt like I grew so much during those 6 months as a woman, and as everything, like, it just made a huge difference in my life completely.
Yeah. And I just think it's crazy because when we was talking about the interview, just kind of, you know, telling the people watching, and you mentioned how you knew Cece, and I was like, say it. You know, and it's just so amazing, like, what these groups, like, how in the world, you in Medellin, you know, and then Cece's in Playa, but we all know each other. It's just kind of, it's just so special of what you're doing with your group, what Cece's doing with her group. So it's really like just inspirational to hear that also inspired you to start your group, and then now your group is just growing and flourishing and doing the exact same thing for what Cece's group did for us. So I really love that.
Yeah, it definitely inspired me because when I came back to Medellin, I felt like that emptiness. I just recently left the PDC group, even though I've been gone, because I was like, I can't let go. Like, I don't want to let go, But yeah, so when I came here, there's a lot of WhatsApp groups, but personally, for example, I love to talk a lot about like gentrification and like the struggles that Latinos go through, like because I've seen it myself, I've gone through it myself. Like one of the reasons I left Costa Rica is because it got so expensive because so many tourists go there that like I can't afford to even go vacation in my own country. So like one of the reasons I ended up staying here as well. And so like I'm a big advocate for all those conversations, and I felt like in all these other groups I kept getting like silenced. Like you could start a little bit, but the moment like it turned into anything, it just gets shut down. And I was like, I don't like this. And so I just felt like I was constantly being silenced. And then I felt like sadly Medellin attracts a lot of the wrong people as well, and I felt like I kept running into those people, and I'm like, I need friends, but this is not what I'm trying to do. So then I remember like Cece's group, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna just try, because there was I need to stop trusting people, because there was a Black women's group here, and another girl was like, oh, you should join that one. I'm like, what? Like, okay, at least the melanated group I could get it, but like this one says Black women's group. So like I messaged the admin and I was like, is this a melanated group or is it like a Black women's group? Because I'm not trying to join a space that I'm not supposed to be in. And she's like, no, it is a Black women's group. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that is not the space for me. I gotta respect that. So then I spoke to her and I was like, hey, would you be okay with me starting another group called Melanated? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So she was kind enough to even share it in that group. And then that's how I kind of just started it. So I started it because I wanted to kind of do or had that same group that I had in PDC, have it here. So I started it off that way. People started joining, but like there was really no activity. Like people would like ask questions, but nobody was answering. There just wasn't the sense of community that I had in PDC. So I was like, okay, how do I make it more interactive? Yeah. So I was like, you know what, maybe if I start like organizing stuff. So I started with game nights. So I found this restaurant that has like board games and stuff. So I started inviting people, and the first time it was a pretty good turnout. I met a lot of people, and then I started doing that weekly, and then I started incorporating Tuesday dinners. So on Tuesdays, like we would go to different restaurants, and then people just started to know each other. I started making friends, and I just started growing. And I remember I had to leave Colombia again in August, and so in July we did like a potluck dinner, and everyone came together, right? And I remember they came out with the cake, and I was like, oh, whose birthday is it? And they keep walking towards me, and I'm like, wait, whose birthday is it? Like, who's that? Like, I didn't know it was anyone's birthday, and it was like they were celebrating my birthday because I had to leave and I wasn't gonna be there. And
you cried. I know you cried. Oh,
I cried like a motherfucker.
I'm about to cry.
I cried like a motherfucker. But it wouldn't even be like they wished me a happy birthday. They were like, Elky, thank you so, because at this point it was like a good group of people. They were like, Elky, thank you so much for organizing all this. And like that was the first time that it really sunk in, like I did this, like I brought these people together. And I was like, what the hell? And then on top of that, I was going to Portugal, because I had finally got my citizenship for Spain, so it was my first time going. I was trying to figure it out. My brother lives in Portugal, so I went to go see him and like try to sort out what benefits I could have with my new passport. And I was stressed because I don't make American money. I make Latin American money, right? So my salary is not that high, and housing in Europe is very expensive. And so I was like freaking out about that. And these people gathered money and gave me money so that I didn't have to worry too hard about like rent. Girl, I was sobbing. And I remember I came home that night and I was just crying, but like happy tears, like the happiest of tears. And I was like, bro, I a community, because I had always felt so alone my whole life because I keep moving around so much.
Yeah.
Even like within Costa Rica, I lived in different cities in the States as well. We moved around a bit. So like, this was my first time that I felt like, oh, I have a group of people that like care about me, that celebrate me. And I was just like feeling all types of wholesome, right? The second part is I had to leave, right, for 6 months, but still it just, I kept the group going. I wanted to open it up in Portugal as well, but I got sick for like a whole month and it was just a hot mess, so I wasn't able to. But it kept going here. I was surprised, and then it's just grown so much now. And now that I'm back, I'm like, all right, let's get this party started again. Tuesday dinners, everything. So, and it's really funny because I also realized that I just have like a natural talent for like organizing events and like bringing people together, and like it just comes so naturally to me. And I never thought, so I'm at a place where I'm like, wow, this is really nice. I'm really happy. I'm still trying to build, so I'm still settling in, so I haven't like been fully able to get into it. But it's like, I don't know, people tell me all the time, they're like, okay, I'm so grateful for this group, it like changed my time here, changed my life. And I'm just like, that's exactly how I felt with the group that I had joined. So I'm like, this is exactly what I was going for. And I ended up changing the name of the group, because I do understand, like in the US, melanated is used more for the Black community. It's not necessarily a more broader term, which makes sense. And so I kept like searching for a name, but I couldn't find something that like resonated. It would always pop up like minorities, but I don't like the word, because I'm like, we're not a minority, we're the majority. Like the minorities are others, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I was like, I don't like that word. And all the other words as well, they just seem kind of like negative. It had like negative connotation. I'm like, this is not what I'm going for. And then I finally came across this word like pan-ethnic, and I had never heard this word before.
Okay, so give us the definition.
So I can't say the definition word for word, but basically, in general, it means like groups of people that have similar struggles or similar experiences, similar backgrounds. They come together and they fight for like the same goals or the same what would the word be? Basically, they fighting for something positive, basically. And so I love that, because I was like, that's what I'm looking for us to like come together that have struggled in similar ways, whether with discrimination or whatever it may be, and bring those powers together. And instead of like dividing us, like come together, find similarities in the ways we can, and learn from each other's differences, and build something off of that. And I feel like that's what the group has been doing a lot of times. Like I've learned so many things from others have learned from from me and stuff like that. And then when you go and you meet in person, you have conversations, it's just like so many different variations of stories, where at the end of the day, like it's similar but it's different.
Yeah.
So
you know what they say, we're all one.
Exactly. So I was like, I really like this name. I was like a little worried about changing it, but I feel like it resonates a lot with what I want to do, and like the direction I want to take the group. And I'm like, I'm hoping I can maybe like even promote the word a little bit more and give it more recognition, so people can, learn about it. And I know, like, at least from the group, they can also start sharing, when they leave or when they meet other people, they can bring them into it. And I'm like, I feel like my journey a lot has also been, it's something I'm realizing right now, is that I'm still trying to figure out who I am and like where I belong in the world, because I'm Latina, but I'm light skinned, like I'm pale, so it feels sometimes difficult because I'm not dark enough, but I'm not white enough. So it's kind of like a similar struggle that biracial people have, where they feel like they don't fit in. And I tell people, like, even when you're filling out documents, right? You have the races. I don't fit in any other race. They put Latino, but Latino is not a race. So it's like I can't even belong. I can't even check a box. You know what I'm saying? Because if I try to check the white box, they're like, no, you're not white. And then I know I can't check the black box. So I'm like, where do I fit in the world? So I feel like my journey right now has been figuring out where I belong, understanding myself, getting to know, learning more as well. So it's been a hard journey. I'm not going to lie. I've gone through some stuff, but I think it's important. And I'm hoping by me figuring it out, I can hopefully open the space for other people to also, who might also be dealing with the same situation where they don't know where they fit in the world, and kind of just create that space for others as well, and just bring people together in like the best way possible, I guess.
Well, I would say that you're doing it, girl. And I love that you also aren't afraid to have those tough conversations. Especially with there being so many people that are moving abroad that have a U.S. income, and even though we're searching for a better life, it does impact, the locals, and you would just be super naive and ignorant to think it doesn't. So there's definitely a balance there that even I am trying to. It's hard because what do what do you do? But that's a whole nother conversation. But one thing I do want to ask you is, how would you compare from? And I know you haven't lived in Costa Rica in a while, but how would you compare? Because I know your family's still there. The cost of living from Medellin, which is also turning into a more tourist destination. Prices are rising. Cost of living is getting higher. So how would you compare that cost of living in Medellin to the cost of living in Costa Rica?
So Costa Rica is actually the most expensive country in Latin America right now. So it's definitely up there. Yeah. To me personally, I could compare it almost to American prices, except for things like rent and maybe food. But for example, if you want to buy like clothes, if you want to buy like a car, stuff like that, I think honestly buying a car is probably cheaper than the States anyways. But rent is definitely cheaper than the States, but I feel like everything else, it feels like when I go to the States, I didn't notice that much of a difference, except for like if you go out to eat, because you gotta tip and all that. We don't have that in our culture. Right. In that sense, it's a little bit cheaper. But everything else, I'm like shopping, like I felt cheaper in the US, I'm not gonna lie. So when I came here, like I said,
import and export, transport. So maybe it's Costa Rica getting, certain goods in, or they may not be, so that now there's a supply and demand thing going on,
So I think what happens is because we're such a small country, we have to import a lot of things, and those costs become very elevated. We do export things, but it's only things like bananas, pineapples, coffee. But because we're a small country, we don't manufacture as much. We rely a lot on like importation. So I think that also affects a lot of the cost, because Colombia is a very big country. So I'm sure they have a lot of factories and stuff that they manufacture here. So that helps also reduce the cost a little bit. But it is very expensive. I do feel like the government also plays a part, but I can't speak too much because I honestly do not know enough about it to really. I did not do well in social studies. Let's just say that.
Me neither. Listen, geography, none of what I'm interested in now since I'm traveling. I should pay more attention.
But to be honest, that's part of why I wanted to travel, because I'm more of a hands-on person. So like while traveling, now I know where certain countries are. Now I understand certain things, history, culture, blah, blah, blah. That before in school, I would just go in one ear, out the other. I'm like, old people, they died. I don't care what happened. I'm done. Like I was not paying attention. But now I feel like I've been a lot more educated about a lot of things, and it's really opened up like my brain to like a lot of different different possibilities.
Being there and seeing, this was once. Like I went to Cartagena for my birthday, and I stayed for 2 weeks. And one of the malls, the nicer malls that they have, was actually a bullfighting arena that they, transitioned into a Coliseum mall. So that's super interesting to me, because I'm like staring at this thing, and like to find out it used to be a bullfighting arena was so cool. But had I learned that in history class, I wouldn't have cared. But since you might
have learned it and you don't even remember.
Right. So I definitely, let's talk to the people a little bit. If you guys have questions for Elky, please comment it down below. We're definitely going to take some questions here in a little bit. I wanted to add, just in case there are some people watching that may now be interested in moving to Medellin, or looking into it in the research phase. What was the residency process like? Getting residency.
Right now, I actually don't have residency. I'm actually working on it. So I definitely can explain a little bit. So For Colombia specifically, we are allowed to be here 3 months on a tourist visa. Now, the good thing is you can either leave, come back in, and get another 3 months, or you can pay to extend, which costs like $30, and you can stay those 3 months without leaving the country. But in total, you're only allowed to be here 6 months out of the whole year. So every year your visa resets. So for example, if you leave December 31st, come back in January 1st, you get the 6 months basically. So that's what I've been doing a lot of times. The first time I came here, I got here like in October, right? So I did the 3 months. I left for Mexico for like a month, came back in, and I did 6 months. So I kind of stayed like 9 months versus like only 6 months. But then I had to wait. I left like in August, and then I had to wait until the next year to be able to come back in. So that part's a little bit frustrating. But now they've come out with the digital nomad visa. So basically what it is if you work remotely and you have permission to like be outside of your country or whatnot, you can ask your company to give you a letter, and you have to make over, I believe it's $1,000 a month. You have to get insurance for 1 year for Colombia, or it could be like a travel insurance as well. It has to meet certain requirements for it to be valid here. And so basically it's those three things: have a remote job. It could be a job where you could be an entrepreneur. You just have to demonstrate that you make at least $1,000 a month, and have the insurance. And basically you just apply. It's very easy. It's just a form. You fill out the questions, you submit the documents of proof, and you submit it, and then that's basically it. You wait to get approved. Once you do get approved, they can give it to you for up to 2 years. It's more likely 1 year, and then you can renew it. When you renew it, you have to start the whole process again, but you basically already have the documents, so it's pretty easy. And you just have to pay for it. And they also, once you have it, you also have the opportunity to apply for a cedula, which is like the ID here. So you have a foreign ID, and with that, you can open like a bank account, and you can do a lot of things out here. So it's quite nice. The downside is it doesn't count towards citizenship. So even if you've been here for several years with the digital nomad visa, it doesn't count towards citizenship. It's just a visitor visa. But they have other types of visas as well. I don't know all of them, but there is one where it's like passive income. So if you make also like $1,000 a month in passive income, whether it's like through rent or stuff like that, and you can demonstrate that does apply, if I'm not mistaken, for you to eventually get citizenship here. And
how long do you have to be a resident of the country before being able to be eligible for citizenship? Do you know what that looks like?
I don't quite know, but if I were to guess, I would tell you it's probably 4 to 5 years, which is usually the standard for most countries like the US.
Fair. Well. 4 to 5 years is fair, because there's some countries I was looking at, baby, it's 13, 15.
What? Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, 13, 15. Mostly in the Middle East. Mostly like the in
I do know places like Portugal and Spain. They have like a special thing where like if you're from Latin America, you can get it in like 2 years.
Oh, that's maybe, because having a second passport right now is like priority number 1 for me.
Yes, I highly recommend. If it has to
come down to me buying one, I'm gonna be a little upset, but a girl gotta do what a girl gotta do, because the passport, the blue passport, is powerful at this moment. But
it's going down a bit.
It absolutely. Yeah. That's another conversation for another day. So again, y'all, if y'all have questions for Elky, comment down below.
Someone said, "Do you ever plan on coming back to this?"
Baby, are we switching roles?
Sorry.
So yeah, I want to give people some time, but we can definitely take this first one, BPE TV show. Do you ever plan on coming back to the US, Elky?
So I was actually just there in October, which was the first time because once I got my Spanish citizenship, I applied for what is called an ESTA visa. So it's different than the Costa Rica visa, which is also what the Colombians have to do, which is where you have to go in person, do an interview. You have to pay like $160 and see if they get it or not. With the ESTA, it's only like, I think $25. It's only online, and you get a response in 72 hours. So it's a lot easier, and it's less likely for you to not get approved. So when I got my citizenship, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared to even try because I had been denied, and I was like, if I get denied another time, I'm never gonna go back. Like I'm done. So I was originally gonna wait a year, but I had already been 3 months in Europe, and I didn't know where else to go again. So and it still wasn't January for me to be able to come back here. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try. So I applied for the ESTA. Funny enough, I got scammed because I was not careful, and I just typed in like ESTA visa, and I clicked the first link, and it was an agency. So it's not really a scam, right? But the visa costs $25 to apply for it. It's just a quick little form. And this one, I filled out the form, I sent it in, it was saying like $80, $70, something like that. And I was like, that's kind of weird. But I'm like, taxes or whatever, probably just went up, I don't know. And I paid for it. And it was actually weird because there was like this one box where it was like me agreeing to something. And I was like, I didn't want to click it because it didn't make sense, but I had to click it. Turns out that box was basically stating that they were an agency and they were submitting the information for me. And I was not careful. So then I was freaking out because I was like, I can't reapply. So I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. Thankfully, in the 72 hours, I got a response and I was approved. And I was like, listen, if I don't get approved, I'm going to fight these people. But if I get approved, you know what?
That's the reason you got approved. Maybe.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? If I get approved, you took my money fair and square. It's all good.
They may have some connections. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I'm like, you know what? And so I went in October because I really wanted to go for Halloween. But I will say I'm a little mad because my goal was to put on a mask and like a flowy suit and go trick-or-treating. They were never going to know. I'm sure they would never know it was not a child. There's no way they would ever know.
But did you do it? I
tried. The thing is, I bought a suit for like $1. But when I got home and I put it on, turns out like you could see my boobs. They were protruding. So like, yeah, they're not going to buy it. So I was like, fuck. I ran out of time. I wasn't able to go trick-or-treating. We did end up getting like some candy at like Waffle House or something. But it was still like a great time. But I was like, damn.
I don't care. You can know I'm a grown big old kid trick-or-treating, and you better give me some candy.
I was like, just let me be. I haven't been here. But it was crazy because I hadn't been in the States for 5 years, and my brother was living there now. So I hadn't seen him for 5 years. So it's like I finally got the opportunity to like see him and like see a lot of stuff. But I remember when I was at the airport and like going through immigration, I was so nervous. And like I was scheming. So I flew into Miami because I was gonna say like I was gonna go to Disney because I didn't want to tell them I was gonna go see my brother because then they were gonna think that I was gonna stay, and I've never wanted to stay legally in the U.S. And so then from there I was gonna take a bus to Orlando and see one of my cousins there as well, and then I was gonna take a bus to Georgia to go see my brother. And so it was a whole hot mess. But I was so nervous, and I remember when I got to the immigration, he was like, "Are you here alone? Are you visiting alone?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "I mean, I know some people." I'm like, "I know some people, but like I'm by myself." He's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm just like, but he's giving me like a little face, like, "I know you got a man's waiting for you or something." And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. And I'm just like, oh my God. And
it's so intimidating. They get a kick out of it, I'm sure.
And it takes nothing to intimidate me. So I'm just like, oh my God. And then again, one more time, he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, well, I have a friend who's here, but he has to work. And he's like, where are you staying? And so I showed him like a hotel that I like reserved or whatever. And then he let me in. And I'm like, oh my God, I was sweating.
About to cry.
I was this close. I'm like, bro, you can't do this to me. I'm not doing nothing wrong. I just want to go buy some food. Listen, I just want to go to Walmart. Leave me alone.
Well, I hope the recent trip to the States was everything that you aspired it to be and more. So what would you say now that we're back in Medellin, you're getting settled in, what would be your favorite thing of this journey? What's your favorite thing about Medellin and what's your least favorite? And you can be as candid and as honest as possible.
I think honestly, my favorite thing has been my growth. And it's not even that I've become better as
Specifically about Medellin, though.
but that's the thing. Medellin is a country where I feel like anything I propose myself to do, I can accomplish. I don't know what it is about it, and I don't know if it's the case for everyone, but ever since I stepped foot here, it's like all I get is yes, 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 yes. And I'm not big on astrology. I don't know much about astrology, but apparently there's this astrology that's like map based, and there's like lines that go through
Oh
places.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget what it's called.
I don't know either. And girl, my one of my lines goes straight through Medellin, like straight through it.
Wow.
And it was something about like lifestyle. And so now I'm like, damn, maybe I do believe because every time I'm here, it's like, for example, like something like the group. I just did it like for fun, you know. I was just trying, and look what it's grown into. And it's like every time I try to start a project or I try to do something, it just happens for me. And I'm like, that's crazy. So I've always said sometimes people feel like they're not good enough or things don't work out for them. Sometimes it's not you, it's your environment.
Yep.
And Medellin is my flourishing environment. So that's my favorite thing about it. I just flourish here.
Yes,
and maybe it's
loves it. That's what it is. You have to go where your spirit leads you. And most people, you know, they stay in places and around people where they know deep down they don't belong. They're trying to force themselves to fit in a room that just doesn't feel comfortable. Not realizing there is somewhere on this earth that is specifically for you. Like everything about it is for you. You won't have to force anything. You won't have to, you know, just settle. You know, you can just literally flourish, like you said. And I'm happy you found your happy place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm hoping, you know, I'm hoping people that might be feeling the same way, I invite them, like, definitely go take a trip, go take a journey. It's scary. It's a scary process, but sometimes you end up gaining way more than what you lose at the end. So
what's your least favorite? What do you not like about Medellin?
Funny enough, I feel like it is the safety, but it's not as bad as people paint it to be. But being in Europe, I do miss that I could just walk around everywhere and it was late and I didn't have to worry. Nobody's like catcalling you or saying this or saying that. It's not that it's unsafe here because it's Colombia, but rather like in Latin America in general, it's a little bit unsafer. Like you shouldn't be walking around with like gold chains or with like a nice phone and this and that, because there's just people that have a lot of necessity. So, you know, they gotta survive. So it is what it is. But if I didn't feel that slight insecurity where I make sure, like, if I put my phone on a table in a restaurant, I keep my eye on it, or like I make sure like I have my bag, you know, like the basic stuff. If I didn't have to take that like little extra precaution or little extra time, this place would be utopia to me. It'd be absolute perfection. Like I cannot complain about anything else, honestly.
Yeah. But you know what? As necessary as that is, and as annoying as it can be when you just want to chill, it keeps you prepared for it, you know, so where you can go anywhere and you have that skill. Because some people, if you grew up safe in a safe environment, you never took any risks, you never, you know, just was in a place that was a little bit dangerous, you're an easy target.
Yeah.
So
and people ask me a lot, like, oh, is it dangerous there? I'm like, well, how'd you grow up? You know, like if you grew up in New York City, like Manhattan, you're good. You're gonna be just fine. If you grew up with the white picket fence, ooh, in the suburbs, listen, you might need a little bit, you know, a little lesson here and there on things to be aware of. But it's not
need a few phones, another phone. You may need a little bodyguard. I don't know.
But it's nothing there's nothing life-threatening, nothing traumatizing that's going to happen out here. As long as you're not putting yourself in crazy situations, of course. But yeah, it's not the dangerous thing that people like to paint it. It's really not. It's just, it's like any big city. As long as you're not dumb, you're going to be fine. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I agree. I love Medellin. So we got another question from T Sims. He wants to ask, what does Elky think about the light skin versus the dark skin racism in her own culture? And he then followed up to say, change racism to colorism.
Yeah.
How do you feel about colorism in the Latin community?
I feel like in Costa Rica, no, I don't know if there's. I do know there's racism. I don't know if there's specifically colorism, meaning like people don't necessarily try to be whiter. For example, like you might see in some Asian countries where they like literally wear like umbrellas and they wear like long sleeve swimsuits. I do believe there is racism because that's just the reality. I think it's messed up. I don't feel like my country deals with it a lot, so I didn't grow up with the mentality of that, I guess. And I will say though, another issue, and that's something that I didn't like too much about Costa Rica, is there's not that much diversity. Like most of our Black community is located in the Caribbean in Limon. So where I lived, like you didn't really see like a lot of Black people, and the one or two, three guys everyone knows some, like because they stand out because of that. So I never really saw a lot of racism. I do know it exists, but I was never like exposed to it until I got older and like I took the time to like learn and research and try to educate myself more about it. But here in Colombia, it's a lot more diverse. Like you see Black people everywhere. You see all shades of everything out here, and that's honestly one of my favorite things as well, because I just love diversity. And here, obviously, racism also exists, but I've noticed that it's more related to classism. So here, if you're a Black American, you come here, they're gonna treat you better because you have money, because you're born.
Right.
And they might not treat you like, if they see you and you don't come off as American, they might treat you not great, right? Because of racism. But the moment that they see that you're American, they treat you better. So it's a mix of racism and classism, to be honest. So it's difficult, but I've had conversations with my friends here, and they'll do things like, if you go to the supermarket, they'll like follow you around and like watch you, the typical stuff that you also like experience in the US. But one thing I've always said with racism in Latin America is that I feel it's different than in the US, because in the US, I feel like racism stems, a lot of them, from hatred, meaning like they actively hate people because of their skin color.
Absolutely. Right.
And I feel like racism in Latin America stems from ignorance, where you've been told stuff and you don't know any better. But I personally feel like majority don't see it, like Black people are like, oh, I hate them because of their skin color. Rather it's more so they're taught like, oh, they're dangerous or they're poor or like dumb stuff like that, and it just keeps repeating. But the moment that you educate themselves, because I had to have that conversation with my mom as well, because for example, there was a TV show in Costa Rica where they did blackface, but it wasn't blackface where they painted themselves and made fun of Black people. It was rather they were portraying, I think it was like Bruno Mars. So they were like dressed up like Bruno Mars and they were singing a song, and to them they're like, oh, I'm gonna paint myself brown so I can look like him. So for an American, it's gonna be like, what? Because there's a history with blackface, but in Costa Rica, we're not taught about that history. So in their head, it's just a costume. It's not blackface. So again, it's racism from ignorance. And so I spoke to my mom about it, and I was like, that's blackface. That's not okay. And I explained like the history behind it a little bit, and she was like, my aunt apparently had done it, and she's like, does that mean your aunt is racist? And I'm like, not necessarily, because she was completely unaware of it. She didn't do it with malicious intent. But if I sit down with her and I explain to her, hey, that's not correct, you can't do that, and she continues to do it, then she's being
a different story. And it's definitely super important that you highlight it. It comes down to a lack of education, and the history isn't the same. I feel like Americans don't have any excuse. But
yeah, no, not at all.
No excuse. But it's super important to just, I feel, for people, Black people and brown people, to travel more than any other group, because we need to be in those spaces. Like see that, we're also here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so passionate about traveling all across the globe, because it's like, no, whatever you heard, whatever you saw, that wasn't an accurate representation of me or my people. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Yep.
But it definitely comes down to just lack of education in years and years and years of media, you know, and a specific propaganda that was put against us. And so thank you for highlighting that. Thank you for asking that question as well, T Sims. We do have a lighter question from Didi. She says, how is living in Medellin? What about the cost for rent? I'm in Mexico, but I was thinking of going to Panama.
So
in Medellin.
Let me I'm gonna not get too passionate about it because I'll have me ranting in here. But I'll give you an example of what I'm paying for rent. So I'm currently renting a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in a building with like an elevator, like in a nice little neighborhood. I'm paying $560 a month. It's unfurnished. So for someone in the US, that's a very cheap price, right? There are other areas that are going to be a lot cheaper than that. So I actually pay a little bit on the higher side. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, if you come to Colombia...
Can we repeat the number for the people who didn't hear?
I pay $560 for a 2-bedroom unfurnished. So the thing is, though, I got my Colombian friend to rent it for me because I don't have residency here. So I don't have credit history here. I don't have a bank account here. So I technically can't rent it. So basically, she rents it under her name and I pay the bills. So...
Well, shout out to your friend.
Yeah,
she's a friend.
She's a real one. That's a real friend for real. And
that's your ace boom coon right there.
Mm-hmm, I appreciate it so heavily. You don't understand.
That's a true friend.
Because otherwise you're forced to basically rent off of Airbnb. But the issue that we have is because tourists come here and for them it's so cheap, they don't care. They'll be like, oh, $1,000, I don't care. But $1,000 is a lot of money here. So the thing is, because people see the people are willing and they have the money to pay for it, they up the prices. So then it becomes like a vicious cycle. Because now if you come here looking for like a cheap Airbnb, you're not going to find one because people have constantly paid for it. And then because you don't have any other option, you're forced to pay it. So then they keep raising the prices because it's just like, well, I have no other choice, I'm gonna rent it, and they're like, well, they're renting it, so I'm gonna keep raising it. So it just keeps going back and forth. Yeah. So
and it isn't, you know, I know it isn't regulated, so it's there's no telling what was the limit.
and the issue that we're having now is that people the people that rent out the spaces, they're basically preferring to rent it out to foreigners than to Colombians. So now a lot of Colombians have to go live on the outskirts, or they can't find housing within the city, or the prices are just ridiculous. So it becomes like a struggle. And it's just like, you know, it's gentrification, right? We experience it in the US as well. What I try to explain to people is that you have to understand that gentrification within the US is with the same currency. Here it's being gentrified by a way higher currency than what they have. So it's basically impossible to fight back because here minimum wage is $1 an hour. People here make $1 an hour working minimum wage. So for us, maybe like a $5 burger, we're like, that's cheap. For them, it's a lot of money. It's 5 hours of work for one burger.
Work.
Exactly.
Yeah, that puts things into perspective.
So we're trying to combat it. One of the things I did was I created a Facebook group where I capped the prices for rent. So the idea is for people to share spaces, the Colombians to share spaces, but put a cap to it. It's still a little bit more expensive because they're furnished spaces. But I was like, nah, like, for example, a bedroom, renting a room, you can't charge more than $300 versus there are people who are charging like $700 for a room, you know? So that's my way of like trying to combat that. But the city, they are trying to make some changes. They're trying to keep spaces that are only for Colombians, only long-term rentals. They're not allowing short-term rentals. So I think, you know, with time, they're going to have to find solutions to things. So right now, rent is very expensive. I'm not going to lie. If you're doing it through Airbnb, unless you got friends like mine, it's going to be tricky. There's still spaces. They're just not going to be the best spaces, if that makes sense.
Baby, that friend is far and few. You better hold on to that one for life, okay?
Yeah.
So we have one last question from Miss Ruby. Do you think Medellin is safe for female travelers?
I do. I think it's one of the countries where I felt the safest. And especially with Latin America, I feel like misogyny is very predominant within our culture. So like back home in Costa Rica, I felt like if I wore shorts or something, people were gonna like say things at me. I never felt comfortable dressing the type of way. Here, the girls, they be wearing bras outside, you know. And I feel like it's just the culture is very open. Like people, girls dress sexy. Everyone's a lot more open minded, and so I don't feel unsafe. There's still, you know, the typical catcalling here and there, but never what I used to experience in other countries or back home. And I feel like you can walk around alone, maybe not at night, but not necessarily because you're a girl, but rather just because it's unsafe. But honest, and I feel like this is a whole other topic, but there are stories of, you know, like women drugging men here. So to be honest, I feel like this is one of the few countries where the roles kind of switch.
Yeah.
Where instead of the woman looking out for the drinks, it's the men that got to be careful with what they're sipping on and what they're doing. So it's very interesting to see the dynamic. But I also have noticed that here men just have a very, like, they have respect for women in terms of safety. So they're not very likely to like mug or rob a woman versus like a man, for example. There's still like a lot of issues with being a woman, like misogyny and stuff like that. But if you're here visiting, unless you're getting involved romantically with the Colombians, it's probably not something you're going to deal with. But safe-wise, definitely very safe.
I agree. I definitely agree with what you said earlier about just keeping your head on the swivel in Medellin. But there was never any instances when I was there of just feeling danger. You know, I never felt in danger during my time. And we had some 6 a.m. nights, girl.
Me too. Once I figured out I wasn't dangerous, I'd be coming home at 3 a.m. all the time. Listen.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Miss Elky. Okay, can we give her a round of applause in the chat, y'all? You know, I'm about to get my clapping hands back. Yes, thank you. Thank you, love. I definitely appreciate you coming on here, sharing your story, talking with us, talking with me. Because I know you're a busy lady out there in those Medellin streets. I definitely appreciate you. Yes, let's get her clapping hands. Is there any last words, any like words of inspiration you want to share with anybody that's thinking about moving, whether it's Medellin or anywhere else in the world? What do you have to say for the people?
I would say I feel like the biggest thing is that people get so scared, right? They're gonna lose this, lose that. But my advice or what I've experienced is that the things that were there, they're gonna stay there. You can always go back to them, but you never know what you can experience unless you like try it, you know? And I think we get so caught up on like, oh, what if I take a wrong turn? That's what life is for. Life is for living, life is for experimenting, life is for learning. So like just take the leap. If it doesn't work out, just go back to what you were doing. But what if you take the leap and, you know, you end up flying? You know what I'm saying?
Right. So what if it works out? What if it do?
What if it do?
What if it do? Forget what if it don't.
What if it do?
What if it do?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, girl. Obviously, things worked out, baby. They worked out.
And if I've never been happier. Listen,
you keep that mindset. It don't matter where you go. And like something I always tell myself is like, you are the magic.
Yep.
You're the magic, bro. You can take it anywhere.
And what a lot of people don't understand is, yes, we're different, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. We all eat, we all work, we gotta take showers, hopefully. I hope y'all shower, you know. But we're all the same. It's just some differences here and there. So don't be afraid to take that leap. Experience different things. And don't be scared. It's all the same things, a little different. Just some different little flavors. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, I know you have plans tonight. You got somewhere to be. So I'm going to let you go.
All right.
Well, thank you, girl. You are welcome back here anytime. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of y'all as well. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
Okay, girl. Bye, y'all.